Welcome everyone. Juniper graduated in 2020 from Ithaca College. You'll hear about it real soon, but we thought they were going into production, and then guess what? Post-production. So, um, they've done a lot of really cool things with their freelance jobs that they've had and staff jobs. So, Juniper is here to tell us all about it and to turn your passions into money makers, something like that.
Let's go. Yeah. Hi, I'm Juniper. Um, Thanks for coming up, and also thanks to Shayna and Brad for um giving me the chance to kind of just talk about my personal experience in freelance, like over the past couple of years, especially after the writers and actors strikes. Um, I'm assuming this is like a 50-50 split between like active freelancers and current students, I want to say, give or take.
I would say
Okay.
there's some staff people here, some current students, and some freelancers.
Okay.
It's a
Got you.
good third. How about that?
Okay. You do be a student. Congratulations, Ryan. Congratulations. And shout out Eric Freelance, living the dream. Um, so I am just gonna get right into it because if I don't have a slideshow with my speaker notes on it, I'm just gonna ramble on all the time. So um so when Gina originally talked to me about the topic that I was gonna talk about tonight, it was more kind of like based around my experience on the first photo here of my time as a freelancer working for this nonprofit company called Ocean X, which is a nonprofit company that's based here in New York. And they have this super multi-billion dollar deep sea expedition vessel called the Ocean Explorer, which is like in the shadow right there. And I was basically living on that ship for sometimes 3 weeks at a time, 24/7, working on their media team with some of the deep sea expeditions they were doing out over in Indonesia this past summer. But then um, the more that we kind of like talked and communicated about what I was going to be talking about here, it kind of like became more of just all of like the kind of little tricks and like kind of like gut intuition uh decisions that I had made along the way in order to get to the exact spot that I had gotten to. And I just um sorry, brain fart. I'm kind of nervous, and also I was staring at my computer screen for 10 hours a day already today. So if I zone out for like a little moment, I'm so sorry. Or bully me in the comment section. Comment and like down below. This is going to YouTube later, right? Yeah, yeah. So comment down below. Comment on the hair, comment on whatever your silly little hearts desire. But with further ado, um, for the people that don't know me, I graduated from Ithaca College in 2020, continuing the spark and uh, yeah, the continuation of 2020 speakers for the next couple of weeks here. And as Shayna said in the intro, I originally started working in the film industry, originally in the production side of things, because I thought that I wanted to be more involved in set life. Um, and then I started working on sets, and I realized that I did not feel as passionate about it as the other people around me were. And um, and I entered the industry during the streaming bubble, which is kind of like the broad term definition of like peak TV, essentially, when like Netflix, Apple TV, Hulu were had all this venture capital money just like pumped into them, and there was just this mass explosion of content that was also exacerbated by the pandemic. Everybody was locked in their homes, and we just could not consume enough content. And when I started freelancing in New York City in 2021, I came into that environment and I seemingly had just like jobs available like left and right at the time. So I started as a unit PA in locations, which um, essentially is basically uh, not to like the to have a bad connotation to it, but I'm basically like the janitor on set, essentially. Like you are responsible for picking up the trash, throwing out the garbage at the very end of day, um, even unclogging the toilets whenever a grip decides to clog it up, or write obscene messages on the marble walls of a private college in upstate New York. That was my responsibility of cleaning all that up. Um, and from there, and just the connections that I had made along the way, I jumped into camera department, started being a camera PA, second assistant camera, and media managing, which is from that experience is how I was able to transition into post production as a data operator at Vice News when that company was alive and well here in Brooklyn. And from my time at Vice, in post production, I was able to make my way up to being an assistant editor on the Showtime on Vice show for season 4. And in May 2023, that's when the company declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And I was in a permalance position at the time. And when that announcement was made, my boss pulled me in like a couple hours later and said that they couldn't renew my contract, which was basically polite corporate talk for I don't have a job anymore. Um, so, um, and from my time at Vice, I was able to join the Motion Picture Editors Guild, or IATSE Local 700, which basically is the wide encompassing guild that it represents basically the majority of post-production work, but no VFX for some reason. God, I love that fact. So, um, when 2020, May 2023 came along, the writer's strike had already been declared. And my mentality going into the summer with basically no job prospects, there was a bunch of people at the time saying that the actors weren't going to go on strike because SAG had not gone on strike in over 40 decades at that point. And the kind of the mentality was that the industry was going to follow the same pattern as what the writers did in the 2007 2008 strike, and there really wasn't going to be like a lot of like gains collected from the strike. And I took that gut intuition and I basically said, I am going to do a cross country road trip and I'm going to get out of the city because I know that I'm not going to be getting any jobs whatsoever. And I just basically packed a backpack, rented a car, and I spent an entire month just going from state to state, um, just backpacking, hiking, and meeting up with friends from Ithaca, childhood friends, family, and just actually like spending time and actually like getting to kind of give myself a breather and kind of decompress after the kind of the chaotic couple of years that I'd entered the industry. I now, with hindsight, I do know that that time in the industry was an extreme high of just content being made and also just jobs being widely available. Like, I mean, I have stories of like literally like having like day playing as a production assistant on Apple TV shows. Um, and where like the assistant director would literally go like on channel one on all of the walkie-talkies and like literally like threaten to like throw his shoes at the PAs because we weren't going fast enough for him. And then like literally like on that same job, like somebody texted me saying like, "Oh, are you free tomorrow?" And then I'm just like, "Hell yeah, I'm free tomorrow. Like, what job do you got?" Um, that situation is kind of a little more not widely available to a lot more people at the moment. And what we've kind of seen is this mass contraction, is kind of like the little snippet that I got from this news article. Especially Los Angeles has been the most hard hit out of all of like the main film hubs and basically the entire like film community worldwide. Um, and the outlook like to this day is still like really like not looking the greatest. And um, I basically, and like this is like, as I said, worldwide. This is not just a US thing. The UK is also seeing like a mass drop in just film production otherwise. Like, I don't know what people I know like kind of like seeing like what everybody kind of like sees on social media now. Like there's a lot of doom and gloom and whatnot. And there's like a lot of people saying like, oh, everything's like going overseas and blah, 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 blah. Like there is some grain of truth to that, especially just with the way of like hybrid workflows and just like remote like working had done to the industry. Um, but like there, everybody overseas is also seeing like a decrease in work, and um, it's like everybody is just facing this reality, and it's going to be like this for the next couple of years, honestly. Um, which leads me to my road trip that I took. Basically, what I had done was rented a car, and I had planned an itinerary of the cities that I wanted to go to, the national parks that I wanted to go to. This picture is a picture of the Tetons in Wyoming, which if you haven't had the chance to go to the Tetons, I highly recommend it. Um, this was the view that I had when I woke up from my tent in a free camping spot, like just like a couple minutes outside of the park. Um, and like this was all that like I was going for basically was to just like capture these moments. And I had bought like 6 rolls of 35 milliliter film, brought my Pentax K1000 camera with me, and I just started snapping photos. Um, and as you could see, my hair was wildly different back then. Um, I uh, didn't really upkeep it. I was kind of like just feeling myself, I guess you could say. I don't know where I'm going with that. Speaker notes, there they are. This photo is of the Hidden Falls, nestled right in between Jenny Lake, which is like the main kind of like touristy part of the Tetons. It's like the most well-known trail there, like the Cascade Canyon Trail. Um, and basically, and like how I was able to get into all these national parks like so frequently is I bought this thing called the National Park Pass, which if you are not aware of is you could just like go on like recreation.gov, and like for only like I want to say like 80 or so dollars, I want to say, you get unlimited admissions to any national park and some national monuments like completely free. And you only need to like visit like 3 national parks in a year in order to get your money's worth. And on this trip alone, I want to say I had visited over I want to say like almost 20 national parks across the country. And like all my outdoor friends, they say it is quite literally like the greatest bargain that you can get in America. So if you are even like near any like national parks or just like any like national like forests or whatnot, I highly recommend getting a national park pass because that definitely saved me a bunch of money. And I was able to just take more photos of views like these. Photo on the left was uh, a shot on the Cascade Canyon Trail in the Tetons, and then on the right is the Bright Angel Trail in the Grand Canyon, where this was like taken at like the 3 mile marker down. I want to say, um, and I just I one of the greatest times of my life. I can't really like say anything or else about it. And Um, I took the skills that I had taken from my BFA degree at Ithaca, the film photography and visual arts degree, and had basically taken all of the skills that I had learned from all the photography professors and just kind of applied it um, to my photos, kind of. And um, and also like at this time, like I had kind of like started to like do like deep dives into like these like content creators online that specifically like just do hiking videos. It's kind of crazy. Like there's like a whole sub niche community online of like people just doing like, these like silent hiking videos and like doing like these like ambient kind of 4 hour long videos where it's just them and hiking and aerial drone footage of the trails that they're hiking on. And like these pages literally get like hundreds of millions of views. And if for the other people like in this chat that have like YouTube channels and just any kind of like public account on any of like the mainstream social media pages, like if you post consistently enough and if you basically like market yourself well, like you could like these people like make sometimes like hundreds of thousands of dollars just like doing stuff like this. And I had kind of like had that thought in the back of my mind when I was taking all of these photos, kind of like in hindsight. Um, because my original intention was like to never do like anything with these photos. Like I was just doing this purely for me. Like it was, I had just like come off of a 10-month job at Vice News where like I was basically being working with like raw footage from the front lines on the war of Ukraine, um, and just like dealing with like all of like the heavy intense like news cycle at the time, and like my brain was just like completely shut off. Like it was completely devoid of like I just needed a break. Like I was very burnt out, and photography and just everything in general was my escape essentially. Um, and then when I came back to Brooklyn in 2023, the actors would go on strike, and um, everybody's like mentality was kind of like, oh, like the work is going to come back. There's going to be like this mass kind of um, influx of work once all of these strikes are settled. And I was kind of like running high, like off of that, just like a little bit. And but then October turned into November, November turned into December, and the work was just not coming back at all. And in order to kind of like grasp and kind of like soak in that reality, like I kind of like resorted back to my experience in customer service, and I got a job at a pool hall here in Brooklyn, working as a server in order to just like make mad money and also just like in order to pay my bills and whatnot. But then when December like kind of like came around and like I had no job offers and like everybody in basically like all of like my inner circle had were basically like talking about like the same exact thing and like they were sharing the same experience that I was going through, I was kind of like, oh shit, I need to think of something fast because my savings is not going to last forever. And I I just needed the money. So what I did was I had kind of just done a little very small push in order to sell prints that I had taken over the summer. And I posted to my personal Instagram page and basically said, hey, I am selling prints of my photography that I took over this past summer. And if anybody's interested in buying any of these prints, I will like personally like come to your house or like mail them to you, and you can have like um artwork on your walls in order to like make your apartment feel more lived in and whatnot. And I got a really I was like really fortunate to like have like a couple good, not like a lot of people, but like definitely more than one, basically come in and buy prints off of me. And I felt incredibly um uh honored and like very like supported by my community. Yes, Nick, I do have a haircut. I am just reading the chat right now. um and Nick DeGennaro did buy a print. Shout out Nick DeGennaro, he's the real one. um and um and from that experience, and from this experience, basically I had learned that um that it basically gave me the confidence essentially in order to be like, oh, like this is something that like I can, if I put the energy into it, like I can actually make this into a like another source of income for myself uh when people like David Zasloff didn't want to give me money. So I um it was really great to kind of essentially have been given the confidence by my community here in the city, and just from like all of the connections that I had made as a freelancer here in the city for the past 3 years, in order to have been supported and uplifted like that. And I felt like really great, and very loved. I usually don't talk like this. I usually like say a bunch of like really like funny, mean things to my friends. Um, uh, so there's that. Um, no more comments uh in the comment section, please. If you say any more nice things to me, I'm gonna bully you. Moving on. Next slide. And so, which brings me to the first slide. And I, from the experience that I had taken, the experience that I had in the summer of 2023, I had came across this job for Ocean X where they were looking for a TAT/media manager. Um, um, for Ocean X. And um literally like, and like you can see here, like this is like our this is our crew photo. If you like look right there, that's my gay little self on the helipad on the ship, surrounded by everybody else. And there's a lot of like other photoshopped like little things in this photo, of things that were not there. Um, that is the magic of Photoshop and our cinematographer, Adam. Shout out, Adam. Um, and to kind of like give you like, it's really hard to explain what this job was, because it's very much very different than anything that I'd ever done. It's like a mixture of corporate work meets documentary filmmaking meets kind of the social media um, content at the same time. And uh, kind of to just give you like a feel of like what the job was. National Geographic had just recently released this TV series on Disney Plus called Ocean Explorers, and like the opening like title sequence of the show kind of like explains the kind of vibe and experience that like I was in basically. So I'm gonna let that.
The ocean, the last frontier on Earth. So much is unexplored and unexplained. To change that, a kick-ass team of insanely talented specialists is setting out to push the frontiers of what we know about our oceans.
Oh my gosh.
Zoleka Philander, deep sea scientist.
Being a deep sea researcher means having front row tickets to the best movie that everybody wants to watch.
Melissa Marquez,
Straight ahead, 12 o'clock.
shark biologist.
We just saw what no one has seen before.
Eric Stackpole,
Scan now.
ocean tech innovator.
I love building tools that allow us to see things in ways we've never seen before.
And Aldo Kane,
This is insane.
former Royal Marines Special Ops.
It doesn't get any more cutting edge exploration than this.
Their secret weapon? The Ocean Explorer. The most technologically advanced research vessel ever built. There's never been a more urgent need to understand our ocean and the animals that call it home. Because their lives and ours depend on it.
Yeah, it's a crazy show. And it's they really like the ship is like absolutely insane. I can't really show you a lot of the ship because there is especially like the crew mess areas because since the ship is basically like an open wide like 24/7 like they have like basically like media releases like whenever you come on the ship is saying like, oh, like there are certain areas of the ship where like you may be on camera and whatnot, and there's certain areas like the crew mess hall and also like our cabins that we were sleeping in. There's no like any like photography or like any videos like allowed whatsoever in order to kind of give people a semblance of like a break of like having to be on camera and whatnot. And so like basically the whole entire like mission of Ocean X is essentially just exploring the ocean and giving oceanographers and like marine biologists like all of like the most up-to-date tools in order to find out more information about the ocean before climate change and like the effects of that basically like change the ocean climates basically for forever. And it was very insane and like really cool. Oh no,
The ocean.
oh nope, that's not that. So so my position on the ship was the DIT media manager person. DIT stands for digital image technician, and like the roles of a DIT on each like production setting differs. Like a DIT like on a union fiction set compared to a DIT like on a more kind of like small scale crew wise like for like a documentary set is completely different. Like a DIT can like do like video playbacks, like do like a bunch of like other cool stuff available. But my role basically was kind of like more of like a media manager kind of person. So what I was responsible for was ingesting all of the footage that they would shoot. So that included the cameras on the submarines, the 2 submarines that we had on board, all of the aerial footage from the helicopters and the drones that we had, and then also any footage that any of like the media people would shoot that day of, like either like in the sub hangar, like on any of the decks, any of the wet and dry labs that the scientists were working on, where they do talking heads of them trying to explain like what their research was for like that type of expedition. And I would have to transcode all of that footage. The last leg that I did in August, I was only on board for about 2.5 weeks, but since we had red cameras on the subs and the subs basically dove down every single day over a span of 2.5 weeks, I ingested about 60 terabytes worth of footage, and I had to transcode all of that. And there was times that it was a little tricky because the backup server on the ship on the second time that I went on, backup servers completely died on me. And I had to basically talk to the tech specialist on board, just to be like, what do I do? And luckily, with the other production company that we were on board with, the NHK based in Japan, I was able to luckily they had brought like a bunch of SSD drives on board with them, and their personal SSD drives acted as my third copy of all of the footage. And it was a lot of data to keep track of, and I kind of went a little crazy, but it was very fun. And then from when I did all the transcoding, I organized all the footage into a Premiere Pro production, which I'll get a little bit more into in the next couple of slides. I would export dailies. Like I say that in air quotes because the dailies, like in this company's lingo, was basically just like selects from the day of like the coolest marine life or like the coolest kind of landscapes that we had captured throughout the day. So it was my responsibility to comb through all the 60 terabytes worth of footage and basically like hand pick like the money shot essentially. And I would cut that down, do some basic color grading, and then which you color in Premiere, and then export that and upload it to Frame.io. So that way the media teams based back in here in New York City would be able to see in real time the footage that we were shooting on the ship, because mind you, the ship is literally like 50 miles like off the coast of land, and like we are like completely like surrounded by sea, and we are completely remote. And the internet was very troublesome and not really that good. So I had to time it perfectly in order to like upload the footage onto Frame.io in order to get it basically out in time. And then I also did like some slight editing capabilities on the ship. So like I would create sizzles, some social media videos for them based on what was basically catching my eye on the ship. And I have, oh yeah, and then my other main responsibility was keeping track of all of the data here. And this only has like 30 rows, but like my media tracker for this leg in August, like I had like over 300 rows of data of just like all of this footage. So it was a very massive amount. But when all of that was done, I was able to actually like edit really cool stuff and like stuff that I felt pretty proud of, which is this little video that I can show here.
It's more exciting going in the water. You know that. It's like, yeah, it is good fun. Plus we get the banter going as well. We love the banter on the SUP team, don't we, Colin? We love the banter. Oh, and we've got Chris giving the banter. We've got Rolf giving the banter. We've got Dave giving the banter. There's just banter all over. Yeah, quite a few cameras on the SUPs. It's not kit that we usually have on, it's the NHK's equipment. Yeah, it's just getting all the work.
Okay, so for timings for tomorrow, we spoke earlier in our meeting, so if I'm incorrect on any of this, please let me know. 7:30 sub read. Yes. For 8 a.m. will be in the subs tomorrow.
And that's all that video that I can show you without breaking my NDA. um, and oh, and I forgot I put this photo in here. Yeah, and while I was on this leg, I was able to also do some shooting of myself by participating in the megafauna surveys that one Indonesian scientist was doing, which basically is just what we would do on these missions was fly in the helicopter for about like 2 or so hours and whatnot, and like literally just scan the ocean floor and just like literally document any marine life that we would see. Because this was the first time that the government of Indonesia had ever really like done any kind of exploration, scientific research into any of their ocean waters. And the main reason why they wanted to, why they allowed Ocean X to come into their waters in the first place is because they're nestled right in the heart of the Ring of Fire in the Pacific Ocean. And back in 2005, no, 2004, it was the 20th anniversary. It's going to be the 20th anniversary of this event. But they had a super devastating earthquake and tsunami that basically wiped out the entire village of Banda Aceh on the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. And about 250,000 people passed away, unfortunately, from that event. And they basically wanted to kind of get an idea of what exactly was going on in their waters, and also to actually basically examine and see the aftermath of the earthquake that had happened there. And when we actually were close to the epicenter of the earthquake, we had discovered that the sediment that had been uplifted from the violent thrust of the ocean crust kind of like sliding on top of each other, the sediment was still swirling around from there 20 years later. And it's not going to settle for at least another 80 years or so. So like that's kind of like that's just like one small tidbit of just like how drastically different and like how complex these ocean climates and like how sensitive they are to like disruptions in the earth. And it was just really cool in order to kind of like talk to scientists and like be able to kind of like talk about like what their passions were, and to kind of see, because like in their world, like this is like literally like their Super Bowl, in order to like get on like on any kind of expedition, because the world of science is like super competitive and whatnot. Um and it's very rare in order to get the chance and to get the funding essentially to basically test out your hypotheses, and uh basically kind of just examine like what the ocean has to basically like tell us essentially. It was really cool. And then from there, I'm not going to show that. No, that's just that's just me shooting dolphins in the helicopter. Um, and then I was also able to see coral reefs and experience that. Um, in the and basically like this was my schedule. Like it was very, very long days. I was on the ship for 7 days a week. So we had we'll see if it's on YouTube. We'll see. um uh like there were no off days on the ship whatsoever. Because since it's so expensive in order to explore the ocean, um like when you're on the ship, like it is like go time for these scientists. And on the ship, and especially for the main crew people that like are on the ship there basically for the majority of the year, they are there to be in service to the scientists and in order to make their projects come to life. So that kind of means that like the normal typical workday for me would last anywhere from like 14 to 16 hours, purely based like on the amount of footage that we would be shooting and the amount of work that needed to be done for the day. So it was definitely like the strangest and like probably most intense experience that I've had so far, like freelancing in the film industry so far. But it was also like once in a lifetime uh, experiences. So, and for anybody that is curious about productions, like I said earlier, like the workflow that we used was in a production, which essentially it kind of acts as a nexus system on Avid. And it allows you to basically like have multiple people working on the same project at the same time without interfering with like any sequences and footage and whatnot. And it's basically able to made for like long form and episodic content, essentially. And this there's like a 150 page workflow book on Adobe's website that if you're curious and you want to give it a read, if you want to learn more about productions, because especially from my kind of like experiences and kind of talking to people at Adobe and also just like seeing what other kind of host teams are going with at the moment, Premiere Productions is going to be a more prominent figure and workflow system within like the next decade or so. Especially with the acquisition of Avid, which is the main NLE program that most professional long form editors use and post teams use. So it's definitely very good to kind of have a little working knowledge of productions. And it's an incredibly marketable skill in order to know and to basically market yourself when you are entering the freelance world. So like this is like literally just like a screenshot taken from the manual there, and like the left side is like what your typical project is. Like you have like individual bins, and then on the right side here, it's multiple projects like within like the same like kind of hub, where which came really in handy with me when I was on this job personally, because since there was such a tight deadline in order to get the footage out and synced and organized and whatnot, there were other people like on the ship, like the scuba team, the cinematographers, and the other social media producers that were on the board that needed to work on their own content and their own deadlines. That what I would do was in my own production right here is that I organized it in a way where like this project that says AE, that was my main project that I used in order to organize all of my footage. And then in the project labeled footage that's where all of the ingested and transcoded footage would live. So what my team members would do, like Adam, Jasper, Jeremy, and the dive team, is that if they needed to look or if they were just curious about how something had turned out, all that they would need to do is through the server that we had on the ship, is that they would literally just like click in to the footage project, and like if you can see like on this panel, like right here where it says project locked, is that whenever you have a project open, it literally creates a lock on that project, and the project enters a read only option. So that way there's only one person that can actually edit and manipulate anything within that project. So and like the main purpose, and also another purpose that productions had kind of solved for long form episodic content with Adobe products, is that it helped people basically not have to re-ingest the same footage into different projects, and that way you would avoid any duplicate IDs and like any kind of like duplicate footage, whatnot. So, and especially that comes in handy when you're trying to export, because if you've ever used Premiere Pro, Premiere Pro just does not like duplicate clips and conflicting codecs and whatnot, and it is a super challenging and tricky. So this was Adobe's solution essentially in order to kind of like streamline that and make it easier. So there we go. And then also, as a DIT, my best friend on the ship was the program called SUP Pro, which if you do like any kind of media management professionally in any kind of capacity, this is the main program that you use essentially. It's super well trusted, and it's like super like tried and true and tested, that it basically takes all of the footage from the camera card and it duplicates into as many locations as you want, basically, in order to make sure that it copies correctly. Because just clicking and dragging like any files from an external hard drive to another external hard drive through the Finder window, it is mostly safe, but especially when you're in situations where you need to have like footage readily available to you as quickly as possible, like sometimes the encryption through like any kind of like Finder window in a Mac or a Windows setting, it could be corrupted and it won't tell you that it's corrupted. So what SUP Pro does is that it offloads your footage from your camera card, what it does is that it rescans the transfer onto the external hard drive, make sure that every single piece of data matches the camera card, and then it creates this PDF file where it gives you all of the specs, the time code, the location of where you offloaded the media, and also basically gives you like the benefit of the doubt that like if you see like this green verification here, like on this right side panel, you know for sure that that copy is safe and it is good to work with. SUP Pro is also a really great like program to kind of get familiar with as well. It's like super like user friendly and intuitive. And I believe there's a free trial or like a free version of it that you can like use or whatnot. So if you want to get into media management, especially like if you want to like get a job like at a Daly's house, or like kind of like any just like entry level post-production job, having knowledge of how shot put works is also a great way to great skill to put on your resume in order to market yourself. So and basically it creates like a PDF that looks like this, where it like shows you the thumbnails. This is super pixelated, so you can't read it, so I'm just going to move on. And from my experiences of the prints that I had sold for my trip in the national parks in 2023, I was also able to bring my camera onto the ship and just document my experience on the ship as well. And kind of just like keep the photos in my back pocket to kind of like keep building up my repertoire of images that I could use for the future. And then also when I was on the ship and when I was traveling to and fro, I was able to do a little like side excursion to Japan and also just like take more photos over there as well. Super great place to visit. I miss it dearly. And there's just more photos. And the way that I got this job essentially was through the Post Color Post Collective on Facebook. Like your jobs can like basically like pop up like anywhere at any time. You just have to be like super gotta it's a combination of like luck and also knowing how to market yourself in order to show people that you are the right fit for the job. So kind of just like this whole experience this past summer was kind of just like an amalgamation of all the skills that I had learned up until that point with my time at Vice, my passion for exploration for my summer traveling in 2023, and then also just learning the lessons that I learned from trying to sell my photography and to create new streams of revenue. I was able to take all of that and just kind of put it into this job here and kind of just like keep going forward and just like following what like at the end of the day like I was very passionate about. Like essentially like once like you just like follow what interests you, like it's super cliche like when I say it out loud, and like this was like the super frustrating part of like whenever I would go to these kinds of events and like hear people talk about their professional experiences, and like whenever somebody would ask them, it's just like, oh, like how do I like get into the position that like you are in? Everybody would kind of like always just say, just being like, follow your gut, and like just a combination of luck and whatnot. And now being in this position, and now talking to like other people about this, like I hate being that person now. Just like kind of like saying that to people, but it's like really true, honestly. Um, like people just want to just people just want to work with people that are just as passionate about the thing that they're working on as they are, essentially. And once you kind of like follow your inspiration on like what personally gives you like fulfillment, um like you'll be like really surprised but like where work experience and like life will take you. It's kind of like the main lesson that I can kind of like say out of this whole experience. um like and throughout this whole time, um like from all the traveling and all the working and whatnot, I was also able to get super involved in the union here in the city. Especially since a lot of people are still out of work, a lot of people have a lot of free time to chat and whatnot. And um, you'll be like, and just from doing that and just literally like sending like cold Facebook messages to people like on Facebook, I was genuinely surprised about like how many people actually like got back to me and how many in-person meetings that I had with people whose work that I really, really admired. And from all these experiences that I had, I was able to kind of just like bring that to the conversations and actually like talk to people and just show my authentic self, or just like a version that people think is authentic, if that makes sense. So I hate beating the same drum over and over, but like it really is true. Um, and I hate that I've come to that conclusion, but it's kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's basically like all that I had planned to talk about. I have been really bad at looking at the chat, and if anybody had like any questions, and taking the post-production rate survey is also very important. Thank you, Shayna, for sharing that. It's really nice. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now.
Yay, thanks, Juniper. That was awesome.
Thanks.
Yes, please take the survey. Anyone who's worked this past year in post-production in the United States. It is hosted by Blue Collar Post and me and my companies and a bunch of others. So please take it so you can see what the state of the industry is and how it's evolving. Like the data so far has shown that work from home, work 100% working in the office was at 12% last year, and now it's 15%. So it's going back up a little bit. Work from home is about 48%. And hybrid's about 30, whatever the math is, 30 something, whatever's left over. So help fill our data. Does anyone have any questions for Juniper? Lots of different opportunities. Do you want to talk about how you got the job you are on now or anything like that? Like how
Yeah.
do you keep finding these little post-production kind of day jobs?
Yeah, I literally got the job that I'm about to clock back into in about 10 minutes. From the cinematographer actually that I had worked with on the ship at Ocean X. He had made the connection. He'd already worked with he was actually a videographer for Mike Bloomberg's 2020 presidential campaign. And he had stayed in contact with them, and he did he also like works in post-production and does editing as well. And he is currently on the current expedition for Ocean X in Malaysia. And when Bloomberg reached out to him, he had thought of me in order to help out with them because he had seen the editing work, like that sizzle that I had showed essentially. And like corporate, like there's a bunch of like corporate companies and like media like departments within like big conglomerates that like really like creating like sizzles and like just like kind of like having like internal like videos to like show to their clients and whatnot. So that was how I found out this job. It's kind of just like a whole like snowball effect, essentially. It's just like always just being like super professional to everybody that you meet. Not saying, not talking shit about other people to other professionals in work settings, and just not being a pain in the ass to work with. Because people really like, especially from how I like to work, like I like to work with people who are not hard to work with. Like genuinely, like I have found that like the main reason why people get jobs is like 70% through like personality, and like, but like 30% also comes from like the actual like work itself.
Well, I know you have to get back to work.
Yes.
So I would like to say thank you again for joining us. And for everyone else, we only have 2 weeks left of meetings before November election, when we are not having any more meetings. So please come back the next 2 weeks. Jacqueline's next week and Adam Sperling's the week after to close us out. And then we'll be back in February. So thank you, Juniper.
Yes, thank you. It's
Thanks,
great.
guys. Okay. Bye, everyone.